Hi there. Thanks so much for joining me today. I'm Colleen Klimczak. I'm an organizational and productivity coach and a certified professional organizer. I own Peace of Mind Professional Organizing, LLC. Since 2003, I've been helping my clients live better lives through organizing and organizational and productivity coaching. I support my clients and my community with coaching, in-person and virtual organizing, my weekly podcast called Your Organized Life with Colleen Klimczak, a free weekly virtual productivity session called Finish Line Friday, a free weekly emails newsletter, and regular content on Facebook and Instagram. I also offer presentations and professional development to groups and companies. And in 2026, I will launch my membership circle to support my community with even more coaching and productivity content. Want to finish strong this week? Join me for Finish Line Friday every Friday morning at 9 a.m. Central for a 2-hour productivity session. Drop me an email at colleen@peaceofmindpo.com to request my Zoom room link or follow the Zoom room link in my Instagram or Facebook pages. Welcome to Your Organized Life 159. So one of my favorite articles from Christmas past, as in like 15 years ago, was titled GPS for the Holiday Season. And a few weeks later, I shared Recalculating Revisited. So I guess today is, Recalculating 3.0, who knows? And I will absolutely share those two articles in my newsletter because they were good ones, even if they're 15 years old. But the idea for today's article and podcast episode came to me while I drove home in a snowstorm. That wasn't exactly what I had planned for my Saturday after Thanksgiving, that is for certain. And to be honest, if you're here in the Midwest with me and you know what a mess that was, it's likely not what you had planned either. For example, I was hanging my outdoor Christmas lights on my front shrubs at 7 o'clock that morning before the snow got too heavy because I just wanted it done. And thank goodness, too, that I was out there because as you're hearing this, that snow and all the other snow since then has likely not melted completely. At recording time, when I first started writing this, there were high school championship games to be rescheduled. And at recording time, Brother Rice High School is state champs. And in my house, we were watching the weather and talking about how to get my college student back to campus safely the next day or not. And mostly, it just made me remember one of my favorite blog articles. And that was the GPS for the holidays and recalculating. Because, honestly, we have to be ready to be flexible all the time. So, recalculating. In that 15 years ago article, the word I used was recalculating. So way back then, that was the word the GPS voice would use when we would change our planned route from point A to point B to something that wasn't planned. Now, when I don't follow directions or I don't do what the maps tell me to do, I just get a little spinning icon on my screen and the word rerouting, but I still use the idea and sometimes the word recalculating, and I will say it, I use it even more this time of year. Thankfully, rerouting or recalculating means there are still more solutions. Thank goodness, right? We just have to pick the best one. We need to be open. We need to be open to recalculating, to rerouting. We know that things don't always go as planned and that we need to be ready to shift as necessary. Of course we plan. The only way that rerouting actually works, I find, is if we actually had a route to begin with. We have to have a plan before we can adjust the plan. But once we have the plan, we need to be ready to change. We have to be ready to be flexible, and that requires that we get better at planning. I know I talk a lot about planning because I'm a fan, but also because it's just so important. If you want to get anything done in a linear, user-friendly way, we need to plan. The planning process takes into account our current status, our desired outcomes, the steps to get us from current to desired outcome, and the resources and also limitations we have to work with between here and there. Did you know over 90% of flight plans filed with the FAA, right? So every time you get on a plane, over 90% of flight plans filed are not completed as filed. So does that mean that we don't file flight plans? No, of course not. That would be chaos. Instead, it means that trained aviation professionals, like pilots, file their flight plans given what they know at the moment, right? To get from here to there, like from Chicago to Boston. And then as the flight transpires, they make adjustments also based on current situation and their planning and experience, right? We've got a plan, but we've also got to be ready to be flexible. Now, I don't know where these two thoughts on perspective go, so I stuck them here. So the first thought about recalculating is to remember that sometimes we recalculate for good reasons too. It's not just when we hit a speed bump on the path. For example, sometimes a meeting ends early and we can take a few moments to rest and breathe between meetings or events. Or we can shift things around a little to add something extra or fun in. I know I have been on flights that arrived early because of a tailwind, right? So sometimes it can be good. And also another word on perspective, only these are 2 words, and that is asking whether something is a crisis or an inconvenience. So what do I mean by that? Sometimes when we are in a stressful situation or a stressful season of our life, we can feel like having to reroute or recalculate feels like a crisis. And perhaps, just maybe, it's only an inconvenience instead. So when there's a blip and it feels like a really big deal, I mean, hey, sometimes it is a really big deal. Do not let me diminish that. But sometimes it's only an inconvenience. If everyone is still safe and no major harm has occurred, the situation is still salvageable and we're just annoyed. All of that may be true, and it helps us to ask that question. Is this truly a crisis or is it just an inconvenience? And hey, then we recalculate, right? So rerouting, recalculating actually requires that we've done the hard work of planning first. I'm going to keep using driving as a metaphor for recalculating, but you and I both know there are many instances in life of recalculating. So if I was rerouting or recalculating as I drove, I could leave early to get where I'm going in case there's traffic or weather. I can call ahead and communicate with the people involved so they know the new plan. I can be aware of more than one way to get from point A to point B. And I can also have a realistic time estimate of how long that drive should take in a perfect world, and also what I can feasibly expect as margins for error. I can take emergency supplies with me for winter driving, like water or snacks or a blanket, for just in case. And now I want you to take that metaphorical leap with me here, right? I can do all of those things in life as well, and not just in driving. I can allow more time for my commute, sure, but I could also allow extra time for a project to get completed, or for someone to respond to my text or email. Clear and consistent communication with others is always good advice, especially when plans change. And that sets us up to continue that practice if something continues to change with those original plans. We also can see that having multiple ways to solve common problems, like a plan B for transportation or staff coverage or a Christmas gift, could be helpful. All of these can be examples of recalculating and not just on the road. We have to route before we can reroute. We have to plan before we can adjust the plan. We have to calculate before we recalculate, right? We have to do that initial work before we can shift. And we have to expect that we're gonna have to shift, right? Today, this moment, on our way home, later this week, etc. We're going to have to shift. And so it behooves us to do the planning first so that we can get ready to adjust when we need to. In that long ago article, I finished with this message, and I still think it holds true 15 years later. Take a break, take a breath, clean up the mess, sing the Christmas carol, welcome the friend, care for the stranger, order the gift, and get it all done. And when things don't go as planned, and assuredly sometimes they won't, we won't get distracted or frustrated. We will just recalculate. Support around getting things done, even when plans shift, is what productivity coaching is all about. If it's time to invest in yourself and explore coaching for organizing and productivity, I would love to hear from you. Drop me a line via email at colleen@peaceofmindpo.com or message me through my social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, or LinkedIn. Thank you so much, and I will talk to you next week.